Hello there everybody and welcome to a new video for Age of Wonders 4. In this one I got 10 tips and tricks for the Mystic culture for you. I have summarized a lot of information that's hopefully going to be useful while you're playing these guys or while you're building a new faction around them, because there's a lot of versatility in this magic-based faction. So let's get started with number one. I want to talk about a trait that's common on all of your units, and that's the Starblade attunement. So in a nutshell, your units gain extra damage whenever you cast a spell on the battlefield. This is true for your ranged and your melee units. They all got that, well, most of them. The supporters, they don't have it, but your battle mages, they all come with it. Basically, the supporters are the only people who are excluded from this goodness. In a nutshell, that means spam spells and have heavier hitting units than the usual tier 1s. This is pretty cool because it is very, very flexible, because you can combine it with all manner of different things. Combine it with offensive spells and you have a really strong early game blitzing tactic. Combine it with buffs and you have a really nice method of increasing your utility or defenses while increasing automatically your damage without having to worry anything about that. This is a really strong side, and it requires you only to cast spells on the battlefield, so do that. Now, number two, I want to talk about the next thing exclusive to these guys, the Astral Echoes. This is massive. So Astral Echoes are lying around all over the world and they gain knowledge or mana on pickup, and the best part about it is you only need to compete with other rulers of mystic cultures with it. It's basically as if there was loot only for you. If there's no other mystic ruler, at least that's 100% true. And to make things even better, you get a building for your throne city, the Altar of the All-Seers, which actually churns out a passive income of knowledge and mana the more Astral Echoes you have collected. This is one super powerful thing and makes this faction automatically stand out in terms of resources, be it magic capacity in terms of raw mana or spell variety due to the heavy influx of extra knowledge. This is one thing that makes these guys always powerful in Magic. Just know that when other Mystic rulers are out there, you have a heavy competition on these things. Number three is something that I really found quite amusing when I was checking out the roster of these guys. We got Ethereal Scouts. So, unlike other factions, we have no horsey scouts. We got these ghostly scouts. They are, as a matter of fact, ethereal, which comes with a lot of funny things. For one, they move faster because they float. So, you see, they move through every terrain with a move speed of 5, and that makes them very, very fast. They are also, well, hard to kill-ish due to their resistances in one direction, but they still don't qualify for combat. What they do is they can hover around all over the world and collect your Astral Echoes, and due to the fact that they don't get impaired by heavy terrain, they're really good when you are around a area which has hindering terrain. Basically, Mystics will never get hindered in their scouting effort by any terrain. This is something worth knowing, because this is a interesting advantage. Albeit small, but it combines very well into the Astral Echoes. Now, number four, another wonderful secret about your units. All your melee units, melee strikes, got this Sundered Resistance thing. So, come on, behave, game. Here. So what this means is your units are ripping off magic resistance while your guys are whacking. This is a pretty interesting trait, and it's quite hidden, and it's very, very helpful due to the fact that you got so many sources of magic damage. This counters any defenses naturally by just whacking people with your melee attacks. Pretty nifty and worth knowing, I think. Number five, I want to talk about the fact that you are just so massively stacked with mana with this faction, and I want to talk about what that means for you. For one, you got many, many different ways of stacking up mana. Your city's unique structures, they both bring mana. Your special province upgrade that also brings mana and wants you to build conduits. In a nutshell, you are the faction to spam spells wherever you are. Don't ever hesitate on spending your mana, because you are most likely getting it back, and casting spells is your strongest side. This is basically the one big thing that your faction is very, very good at, and therefore utilize that high mana income, stress it out harder than with other factions, especially since you have access to more combat spellcasting points than other factions. The Spellbreakers, they come with a ability to add combat casting points. There is a pretty nice cultural trade, powerful evokers, which increases, again, combat casting points by battle mages and supporters. These things help you even more to churn out your destructive or buffing forces, whatever you want, but use it. Or you can also go for, yeah, there are options. Just be aware of the fact that you got mana to no end, and it's almost not avoidable to have insane mana stockpiles with this faction. Now then, number 6. So I want to talk about the fact that this is one faction that has almost no physical damage. When you check out the roster, only your melee units are actually capable of dealing physical damage. Everybody else in your roster, yep, even your scouts, they only deal magic damage. This is insofar problematic as it will be hard for you to kill units that have a high resistance, but luckily you got your armor shredders. Another thing that, or resistance shredders I should rather say, another thing that's quite problematic though is your units are haphazardly defended against physical. You know, you have literally only one unit that's somewhat well defended, and this here is actually not representative. This is the base skill. This is the base value. You are usually really low on physical defenses. This is something you should know, because as a matter of fact, this makes you very vulnerable to most sources of damage early on, because physical damage is a little bit more common than magic damage. But on the other hand, you can easily fix that problem with all the magical options you got. But you should be aware of that problem in the first place, that you are only able to deal physical damage with melee, and you are very susceptible to melee damage in general. There are options. I don't need to say more, I think. Number 7, I want to talk about those Spellbreakers. They are really cool. I mean, it's a tier 3 unit, they should be cool, and I want to explain why. For one, they got this wonderful fact that they can add in more combat casting points. This is one thing, but the Star Purge is really something else. It does debuff the units. That means every big buffing strategy on the battlefield fails against you, because, you know, you can't just rip it off the enemy just like that and deal damage while doing so. This is the best part about it. But the second line, the double damage to magic origin units, makes them even counter summon units quite hard. In a nutshell, it's really hard to compete against the mystic culture when you are relying on buffing or summoning strategies. You really should be aware of that fact, that the Spellbreakers will spit into your soup. Or, if you notice that the enemy does that mistake, or if you notice that there are a lot of magic origin units somewhere out there, you can utilize these guys. This also means that they are really good at all those map encounters that are based around magic-based magic origin units, and they also are good at debuffing those map encounters. Really good stuff. I really like the Spellbreakers, especially since Star Purge is very interesting in its utility effects. Not so high in the damage, but the utility effects are massive. Now then, number 8. Let's talk about those Spellshields. They were, for me, a really nice surprise as well, due to the fact that they come with a really decent resistance on their own. But that skill here, the Stunning Flash, I just want to mention that thing for a moment. It is a point-blank AoE stun skill. This, due to the fact that disables are always massive, because it means that somebody will just give up their turn, your spell shields are able to just sit in the front lines and stun the enemy front line. That, in the ideal scenario, will halt the entire enemy offensive, because if the terrain is right, you can basically stun the enemy front line and make them incapable of engaging on you further. just by these guys standing in front of them and doing damage. It doesn't deal that much damage, but on top of that stun, it is even a damage skill. I love that. They are really, really cool, and their only downside, in my opinion, is again, they're relatively low physical resistance, but that is fixable with magic. What is not fixable with magic? Now, number 9. I want to talk about a weakness of this faction, and that lies clearly in expansion. You see it here already. Food income is relatively low, and that's because you have no native boosters for food whatsoever. There's nothing. There's no cultural building, there's no cultural province improvement, no inherent, no, nothing. So you have to either bite that bullet, that you are better off with a tall playstyle, that means low amount of cities, high quality, or you help yourself out with outside sources by dabbling into other cultural, other society skills like adept settlers or other things that boost up your food income. There are plenty of options if you want to, but I think due to this fact, they are natively not that well off for this kind of victory. And let's get on over to number 10. This is around the fact that you can utilize even more than just spells. I want to talk about the bigger picture of your options here. Of course, your faction is very well fit for a magical victory. Due to the native access to Astral Imperium skills, you are really powerful in summoning stuff. So summons are one path that I haven't talked about yet. You are really, really good at summoning stuff. You have this high mana income. You have access to several skills that lower the upkeep of these guys. Or was it here? Yeah, if you dabble into shadow into shadow affinity, you can even lower the amount of summons. Summons go really, really well with this faction. It's not the only faction to play with summons, but I really wanted to point out that this is a really neat way of fixing your problems without integrating another culture into your roster. Another thing here is I want to talk about the leaders. This faction plays super well with a Wizard King, because the Wizard King's innate ability is to give you another spellcast. Also, he is featuring a lot of bonuses for your spellcasting in general, and due to the overchannel and the value of extra spellcasting for the Mystics, I highly value Wizard Kings for the Mystic faction. So there is, at the end of this list, way more to say about the faction. This is just a solid overview of things worth knowing about these guys, so I thank you so much for watching. I am already working on advanced versions for all of these tutorials with a little bit more depth, but I have to learn the ropes myself to give you some nice things. Why I'm saying this, feel free to leave some tips, tricks, and ideas about the Mystic faction in the comment section below, so we can all just get the best out of this, and leave a thumbs up on that video if you enjoyed, and consider subscribing. I'd be delighted if you did so. There's also a playlist link down there in the description box leading to all the other Age of Wonders videos I did so far. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.